15 years. That's how long she'd lived here, in this house of marble floors, imported olive trees, and ceilings so high they swallowed voices. She had drawn every sketch for this villa with trembling hope in her late 20s, her hands ink-stained and heart full. Raphael had held her close then, whispering, "Build us a dream, Elena. I'll make sure it's real." And she had. She remembered selecting each tile in the kitchen, the warm terracotta that reminded her of her grandmother's courtyard in Seville. She'd argued with 3 contractors to keep the old fig tree in the central patio, even though it complicated the plumbing. She'd chosen every cushion, every rug, every book on the shelves, not for show, but for comfort, for the life they were supposed to grow together. Now the house felt too big, too quiet. "Mama?" came a soft voice from the hallway. Elena turned quickly, smoothing her expression before her daughter, Sophia, appeared in the doorway, holding a sketchbook open to a drawing of the villa's garden. "Look, I drew the jasmine vines like you taught me, with shadows." Elena knelt, her silk robe brushing the cool stone floor. "It's beautiful, Carino. You captured the way the light catches the leaves in the morning." Sophia tilted her head. "Papa says we should tear out the jasmine. He says it's messy, drops flowers everywhere." Elena's breath hitched. She touched the girl's cheek, her voice steady, though something inside her cracked. "Some messes are worth keeping, mi vida, especially the fragrant ones." Sophia nodded, satisfied, and wandered off toward the piano room, humming a tune Elena used to sing to her as a child. Alone again, Elena walked to the kitchen, the heart of the house, she'd always called it. She ran her hand over the counter, remembering the night Raphael had come home late, his tie loose, eyes tired but smiling. He'd found her baking mantecados at midnight, stressed over a failed job interview. He'd taken the rolling pin from her hands, kissed her flour-dusted forehead, and said, "You don't need a job, Elena. You have me, and this, it's your kingdom." She believed him. For years, she believed him. But kingdoms built on someone else's promise are fragile. And lately, Raphael's promises felt like echoes in an empty room. His phone buzzed constantly, always face down. He'd started taking weekend strategy retreats with his new marketing director, Valeria. Elena never asked questions. Not because she trusted him fully, but because she feared the answer might shatter the life she'd stitched together with silence and sacrifice. She poured herself a glass of water, her reflection warped in the stainless steel kettle. "Who am I in this house now?" The thought slipped in like a draft through a cracked window. Quiet, cold, impossible to ignore. Outside, the villa's infinity pool shimmered, merging with the sea in an illusion of endlessness. It had once symbolized their future. Boundless, seamless, eternal. Now it just looked lonely. And Elena, standing in the center of everything she'd ever built for love, realized she hadn't built a single thing for herself. Not yet, but something in her, something quiet, deep, and ancient, was beginning to stir, like roots pushing through stone. The sun vanished. The lights inside the villa flickered on, one by one, as if the house itself were waking up. And so was she. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller disinvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada topico que for disinvolve. Mi conti sobrio topico tu com dialogo como su fosso espectador. Sempre lembrando de disinvolver com vida moco. Com vidos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear, de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo a mingles. Com 6.000 characters when 3 Max Rafael Delgado's office smelled of leather, bergamot and something sharper, impatience. It was past 9 at night, and the city lights glittered below like scattered diamonds, indifferent to the quiet unraveling happening inside the 42nd floor suite. Elena stood just inside the doorway, a cashmere wrap pulled tight around her shoulders, the hem of her dress still damp from the evening rain. She hadn't meant to come here, but Sophia had left her sketchbook at his office, and Raphael had forgotten to bring it home. Again. She'd called 3 times. No answer, so she came herself. The door had been slightly ajar. And from the hallway, she heard laughter. Light, breathy, unmistakably Valeria's. And honestly, Rafa, that villa is so dated. All those rustic tiles? Feels like a countryside inn, not a billionaire's retreat. Valeria teased, her voice lilting with playful mockery. Elena froze. Then Raphael's voice, low and warm, the way he used to speak to her over morning coffee, answered, "You're right. It's time for something sleeker. Something that matches you." A pause. The clink of ice in a glass. "You know," Valeria continued, her tone shifting to something softer, more intimate, "I keep thinking, what if we just started fresh? No ghosts, no old furniture, no expectations." Another silence, heavier this time. Elena's fingers curled around the doorframe, her knuckles white, her chest tightened like a vice. Then Raphael said, so quietly Elena almost missed it, "She doesn't even notice anymore. Elena. She just floats through the villa like a guest in her own home." The words didn't cut. They hollowed, as if someone had reached inside her and scooped out everything she thought she was. Valeria laughed. A soft, knowing sound. "Poor thing. Still playing house while you've already moved on." Elena didn't gasp, didn't cry out. She stepped back, soundless, as if the floor might betray her with a creak. Her heart hammered, not with rage, but with a sudden, terrifying clarity. All those missed birthdays, the business dinners that always fell on their anniversary, the way he'd stopped looking her in the eyes when she spoke. She'd told herself it was stress, the weight of empire, the price of success. But this was betrayal dressed in silk and served with a smile. She turned and walked down the corridor, her heels clicking once, then stopping. She slipped off her shoes and carried them like secrets in her hands. The elevator doors opened to an empty car. She stepped in, pressed the lobby button, and only when the doors closed did she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle. She stood beneath the awning, barefoot on the cold marble, watching water slide down the glass. Her reflection stared back, pale, composed, eyes wide with something new. Not pain, not yet, but awakening. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. A text from Raphael. "Sorry, love, got tied up with Valeria on the Q3 campaign. We'll be late. Don't wait up." She read it, then read it again. Once, this message would have made her sigh, pour herself tea and wait, quietly, loyally, until he came home smelling of cologne and excuses. But not tonight. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She didn't reply. Instead, she typed a new message to her sister, miles away in Seville. "Clara, do you still have those old blueprints from the villa? The ones I drew before we even broke ground?" A pause. Then, "I think I need to remember who built it." A taxi pulled up. She slipped inside, her bare feet curled against the worn seat. As the city blurred past the window, Elena didn't look back at the tower where her husband laughed with another woman in a room full of expensive silence. She looked ahead, and for the first time in years, she felt something stir beneath the numbness. Not just grief, but purpose. Raphael thought she didn't notice. Ned to make her feel like the jewel at the center of his world. Tonight, it felt like armor. She moved through the crowd with practiced grace, nodding at familiar faces, exchanging pleasantries with investors and socialites who once leaned in to hear her thoughts on art or architecture. Back when she was still seen as more than just Rafael Delgado's wife. Now, their eyes slid past her, searching for him. She didn't mind. She wasn't here for them. She'd come because Rafael insisted. "It's important, Elena. Valeria will be presenting the new brand campaign. Your presence grounds me." "Grounds you?" She'd almost laughed, but she said nothing. She'd learned the power of silence. Now, she stood near the terrace, sipping mineral water, watching Raphael across the room. He stood with Valeria, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. A gesture so casual, so possessive, it made Elena's stomach twist. Valeria wore a dress the color of fresh blood, her laughter ringing like wind chimes in a storm. Elena turned away, needing air. She stepped onto the balcony, the sea breeze cool against her skin. The city glittered below, indifferent. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, trying to steady the tremor in her hands. Then a vibration in her clutch. Her phone. A notification. Not a call. A message. From Raphael's assistant, Miguel. Loyal. Overworked. Unaware. Senora Delgado, apologies. Accidentally sent the client folder to your inbox instead of Senor Delgado's. Please ignore. Will resend to correct address. Elena frowned. She hadn't received anything. She opened her email, scrolled past charity invites and Sophia's school updates. And there it was. An attachment titled, Costa Azul, Final Render plus Personal Notes. Do not share. Her thumb hovered. She shouldn't. It wasn't hers. But something, instinct, dread, the ghost of the woman she used to be, made her tap it open. PDFs loaded, architectural plans, budget sheets, and then a private notes file, password protected. Except Miguel had included the password in the email by mistake. Raphael's birthday, their wedding date, Sophia's name. She tried it. It worked. The document opened. It wasn't about the villa. It was a private journal, entries dated over the last 6 months. April 12th. Valeria says Elena suspects nothing. Good. Less drama. The villa is starting to feel like a museum. Everything preserved, nothing alive. She still waters those damn jasmine vines like they're sacred. Maybe they are. To her. Not to me. May 3rd. Told Elena the board wants me in Singapore for a month. She didn't even ask questions. Just nodded. God, it's easy. Almost sad. June 18th. Valeria wants to move into the villa after the divorce. Said it's symbolic. I like that. Out with the old. In with someone who understands the future. Elena's breath came in shallow gasps. The words blurred. Her fingers trembled so badly the phone nearly slipped from her grasp. Behind her, the gala music swelled. A string quartet playing something elegant, something meaningless. Footsteps approached. Light, confident. Elena! Valeria! Elena quickly locked her screen, turned, her face smooth as porcelain. You're missing the toast? Valeria said, smiling. But her eyes flickered to the phone in Elena's hand. Everything all right? Perfectly, Elena replied, her voice calm, steady. So steady it surprised even her, just admiring the view. It's breathtaking. Valeria stepped closer, the scent of her perfume. Expensive, sharp, filling the space between them. Raphael's looking for you. He wants you by his side when he announces the new acquisition. Announces the new acquisition, as if Elena were part of the brand. A logo, a legacy accessory. Elena smiled faintly. Of course. Thank you. Valeria lingered a second too long, then turned, her heels clicking back into the glittering crowd. Alone again, Elena leaned against the railing, her pulse roaring in her ears. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, dark and deep and full of secrets. She thought of the villa, her villa, the jasmine, the fig tree, the kitchen where she'd once believed love could be baked into bread. And she thought of Raphael, standing inside, celebrating a future that erased her without even needing to say goodbye. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away, because in that moment, something hardened inside her. Not anger, not yet, clarity. She wouldn't make a scene, wouldn't cry in public, wouldn't give them the satisfaction of watching her break. No, she would walk back in there. She would stand beside him. She would smile. And then quietly, meticulously, irrevocably, she would begin to dismantle everything he assumed was his, starting with the one thing he thought he could keep. The house she built with her own hands, her dreams, her silence. The music shifted to something slower, more dramatic. Elena took a deep breath. She straightened her spine and walked back into the light. No longer a ghost in her own life, but a woman returning from the edge, ready to claim what was always hers. The front door clicked open. Raphael walked in, still in his suit, briefcase in hand, as if coming home from a normal day. But his eyes avoided hers. He loosened his tie, cleared his throat. "We need to talk," he said, voice flat, rehearsed. Elena didn't look up. "I know." He blinked, surprised, then recovered quickly, stepping into the kitchen like it still belonged to him, which legally it did. "Good. Saves time." He poured himself coffee, black, no sugar, the way she used to make it for him every morning. The familiarity of it made her throat tighten. "I've spoken with my lawyers," he began, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "We've drafted a separation agreement. Generous, Elena. Extremely generous. A monthly stipend, full access to the Madrid apartment, a trust for Sophia's education." "Are you leaving me?" she asked softly, finally meeting his eyes. He hesitated, just a fraction of a second. But she saw it, the flicker of discomfort, the rehearsed script cracking at the edges. "It's not about leaving," he said, voice softening, as if he were doing her a kindness. "It's about moving forward. Valeria and I—" "Don't say her name in this house," Elena interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. "Not yet." He frowned, taken aback. "Elena, be reasonable. This isn't personal. It's just the way things are now." She stood slowly, folding her hands in front of her. 15 years. I gave you my youth, my ideas, my silence when you needed space. I raised our daughter while you built empires. I never asked for a title, a spotlight, a single share in your company. But this house is in my name." He cut in sharper now. "Purchased with my funds. You know that. I drew the blueprints," she said, voice trembling not with fear, but with something far more dangerous, certainty. "I chose every stone. I argued for the skylight in the library so Sophia could watch the stars. I planted the jasmine with my own hands. Does that count for nothing?" He looked away toward the garden. "Sentiment doesn't pay bills, Elena." A silence stretched between them, thick with everything unsaid. Then, from his pocket, he pulled a manila envelope and placed it on the marble island. "Sign it. The sooner, the cleaner. You'll never want for anything. You'll be taken care of." She stared at the envelope like it was a snake. "Taken care of?" she repeated, the words tasting bitter. "Like a pet? Or a ghost?" He sighed, impatient now. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You're not equipped for the real world. Not after all this." He gestured around the villa, as if it were proof of her fragility. For a moment, she said nothing. She walked to the window, looked out at the fig tree. Older now, branches wide, sheltering the patio like a guardian. Then she turned back, her eyes clear, dry, steady. "I won't sign anything," she said. "And I don't want your pension." He laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. "Then what do you want?" She took a step closer. "I want what's mine," he scoffed. "And what's that?" "The truth," she said. "And the house." He stared at her, as if seeing her for the first time in years. Not the quiet wife, not the background figure, but a woman with eyes like flint and a spine of steel. "You can't have it," he said coldly. "It's mine." "Is it?" she whispered. "Then why does every room echo with my choices? My love? My absence?" He grabbed his briefcase, jaw tight. "Fine, don't sign. But don't come crying when you're left with nothing." He turned toward the door. "Raphael," she called. He paused, hand on the knob. "If you think walking out makes you the winner," she said, voice low and steady, "you've already lost." He didn't reply, just shut the door behind him with a soft, final click. Elena stood alone in the kitchen, the envelope still on the counter. She didn't touch it. Instead, she walked to the study, the room she designed for quiet thinking, and opened the bottom drawer of her old desk. Beneath sketchbooks and dried-up pens, she found it. The original prenuptial agreement, the one signed in haste before their wedding, when Raphael was still a man with dreams, not a brand. And there, in faded ink, Clause 7, be any property co-conceived and materially contributed to by both parties, regardless of title registration, shall be considered jointly held in spirit and equity. She'd forgotten it existed, but now she remembered everything. Outside, wind rustled the jasmine vines. The scent drifted in sweet, insistent, alive. And for the first time since the gala, Elena smiled. Not because she had a plan. Every room whispered memories. The library where she'd nursed Sophia through fevers. The terrace where she'd watched Raphael propose under a sky full of stars. The kitchen where she'd once believed love was measured in shared meals and quiet glances. Now, those memories didn't ache. They armed her. She brewed coffee, strong, black, no sugar, and sat at the island, the prenup open before her. The clause wasn't a guarantee. It was a thread. But threads, when pulled with precision, can unravel entire tapestries. Her phone buzzed. A message from Sophia's school. Parent-teacher conference, this Friday. Both parents requested. Both. The word stung. Not because she feared seeing Raphael, but because she knew he'd show up polished, charming, the generous patriarch, while she'd be the fragile one, the emotional one, the woman who lost her way. She wouldn't let that be her story. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. Clara? Her voice was quiet, but firm. Elena? Her sister's voice, warm and sleepy, crackled through the line. It's 5 a.m. here. Are you all right? I'm more than all right, Elena said, staring out at the first light spilling over the ocean. I'm awake. A pause. Then, gently, what happened? He left me, Elena said simply. Offered me a pension like I'm a retired servant. Told me to be grateful. Clara's breath caught. And what did you say? I said no. Silence. Then a soft laugh, full of pride. Good. About time. I need your help, Elena said. Not just emotional support. I need you to be my witness to everything I built here, every decision, every sketch, every late night I spent picking tile samples while he was in meetings. You've got it, Clara said without hesitation. Send me everything, every file, every photo, every receipt. And Elena, call Lucia Marquez. Elena's heart skipped. Lucia, the sharp-eyed corporate lawyer who'd once represented a client against Raphael's firm and walked away with a settlement that made headlines. She won't take my case, Elena said. Raphael owns half the legal firms in this city. She'll take it, Clara said firmly, because you're not asking for money. You're asking for justice. And Lucia loves justice, especially when it bites arrogant billionaires in the ego. That afternoon, Elena sat across from Lucia in a sunlit office downtown, far from the gilded towers of Raphael's world. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She laid out her documents like architectural plans, methodical, precise. The villa isn't just a house, she said, voice steady. It's the physical record of my life, my labor, my vision. He thinks because his name is on the deed, it's his. But you don't erase 15 years of someone's soul with a signature. Lucia leaned forward, eyes gleaming. And Clause 7b? A forgotten clause, Elena admitted. But it exists. And if we can prove I materially contributed design, oversight, emotional and creative labor, it might be enough to claim equitable interest. Lucia smiled slowly. It's a long shot, but long shots are my favorite kind. Then softly, why refuse the pension, Elena? You could have walked away clean. Elena looked out the window to where the villa's white silhouette shimmered in the distance. Because walking away wouldn't heal me. Reclaiming what's mine would. Later that evening, back at the villa, Elena stood in the master bedroom, the one she and Raphael had shared. She opened the closet. His suits still hung there, crisp and untouched. She didn't remove them. Not yet. Instead, she took a box from under her bed, old photos, letters, the pressed jasmine flower from their wedding day. She lit a single candle on the dresser, its flame small but steady. I won't disappear, she whispered to the room, to the ghost of the woman she used to be. And I won't be bought. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. A storm was coming. But this time, Elena wasn't afraid of the rain. She walked to the study, opened her laptop and began typing. List of all design contributions to the Costa Azul Villa. Elena Morales, 2009 to 2024. One by one, she documented everything. The stone from Andalusia she'd insisted on. The custom ironwork for the staircase. The acoustic panels in the music room, designed so Sophia's piano notes would never echo harshly. Each entry was a brick, and she was building a fortress, not of revenge, but of truth. And somewhere, in a sleek penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a woman who thought she'd won, Rafael Delgado had no idea that the quiet woman he'd underestimated was no longer waiting for permission to take back her life. She was already doing it. Receipts for materials Rafael had never even glanced at. Photos of her standing in the villa's unfinished shell. Dust in her hair, pride in her eyes. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Then, late that night, an email arrived. Subject, you might want to see this. It was from Miguel, Rafael's assistant. The same one who'd accidentally sent her the private journal. Her pulse quickened. She opened it. Attached was a scanned copy of an old internal memo from Delgado Holdings, dated 2011, just 6 months after construction on the villa began. The subject line read, Costa Azul Project, Reimbursement Request. Elena Morales, Design and Supervision Fees. Elena's breath caught. She scrolled down. There it was. Rafael's signature approving a payment of 180,000 euros to her personal account for architectural consultation and on-site project management. She'd never seen the money, never known it existed. At the time, she'd been told the villa was a gift, that her work was love, not labor. But here, in cold corporate ink, Rafael had valued her contribution. Officially, financially, legally. And then he'd quietly redirected the funds into a joint investment account. One that, according to the footnote, was later merged into his private holding company. Her hands shook. This wasn't just proof of contribution. It was proof of erasure. She called Lucia immediately. Miguel sent this? Lucia asked, voice sharp with disbelief. He's risking his job. He's tired of watching Rafael treat people like disposable assets, Elena said quietly. Maybe he remembers how I used to bring him tea when he pulled all-nighters. Maybe he just believes in fairness. There was a pause. Then Lucia said, this changes everything. That memo, combined with Clause 7b. Elena, we can argue that not only did you co-create the villa, but Rafael acknowledged its joint nature in writing and then concealed your financial stake. That's not just equitable interest. That's potential fraud. Elena closed her eyes. The word fraud hung in the air like a struck gong. I don't want to destroy him, she whispered. No, Lucia said gently. But you do want the villa back. And now, you might actually have a legal path. The next morning, Elena sat with Clara on a video call. Both of them bleary-eyed but wired with adrenaline. So what now? Clara asked. Now, Elena said, pulling up property records on her screen. We trace every euro tied to that villa, every permit, every invoice, every tax filing. Because if Rafael's been hiding liabilities, and I suspect he has, then he might be forced to sell. Clara frowned. Sell? But he'd never let go of the villa. It's his trophy. Unless he has no choice, Elena said, her voice low and steady. Unless the bank calls in a loan he can't repay. She'd heard the rumors for months. Whispers at galas, offhand comments from Rafael's former partners. His latest development in Dubai was hemorrhaging money. He'd leveraged nearly all his real estate holdings, including the villa, to cover shortfalls. He was drowning. He just hadn't surfaced yet. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, Elena walked through the villa one last time, not as a wife, but as a strategist. She paused in the foyer, where a small, discreet plaque was embedded near the baseboard, installed by the builders on the day construction finished. It bore two names, Rafael Delgado and Elena Morales, Costa Azul, 2010. He'd never noticed it, or maybe he had and chose to forget. She touched it lightly. You were mine before you were his, she whispered. Back in the study, she opened a new folder on her desktop. She titled it, Bid Strategy Villa Costa Azul. She didn't know if it would come to auction, but she was ready just in case. Because now she knew this wasn't just about reclaiming a house. It was about reclaiming her name. And if fate and Raphael's own arrogance forced the villa onto the market, she would be waiting, not with bitterness, luxury, but stepping into her own skin. Across the table sat Mariana, a young entrepreneur opening a boutique hotel in the hills. "I saw your sketches for the Costa Azul villa online," she said, eyes wide. "They're breathtaking, so alive." Elena smiled faintly. That villa was built with love, not just aesthetics. Mariana leaned forward. "That's exactly what I want. Not something trendy, something with soul." And just like that, Elena was working again, not for status, not for survival, but for meaning. Still, nights were long. After Sophia fell asleep, Elena pored over financial documents, practiced negotiation scripts with Lucia over wine, and scanned auction notices with the intensity of a detective. But during the day, she designed spaces that breathed warm, functional, human. One afternoon, as she met with a client in a cafe near the harbor, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "He's in trouble. Bigger than he's letting on. Watch the financial pages. M. Miguel." Again, her stomach tightened. She opened the business section of the national paper on her phone. Buried on page 8, Delgado Holdings faces liquidity review after Dubai project default. Her pulse quickened. Now, 2 days later, Lucia called, voice crackling with restrained excitement. "They're doing it, Elena." The bank filed a motion. If Raphael can't refinance by month's end, the villa goes to judicial auction. Elena stood at her window, overlooking the narrow street below. Rain had just passed, leaving the air clean and sharp. "How much will it take to win?" "We don't know the reserve price yet," Lucia said. "But I've spoken to someone who might help." "Who?" A pause. "Sebastián Ortega." Elena froze. Sebastián, Raphael's former partner. The one who'd walked away from Delgado Holdings 5 years ago after a bitter dispute over ethics. A man known for his quiet generosity and sharper instincts. "He's been following your case," Lucia said. "Says he always admired your eye and your integrity." That evening, Elena met Sebastián at a quiet bookshop cafe, far from prying eyes. He was older than she remembered, silver threading his temples, but his gaze was as clear as ever. "You look tired," he said gently, sliding a cup of tea toward her. "I am," she admitted, "but awake." He smiled faintly. "Raphael used to brag about the villa like it was his masterpiece. Never mentioned you once, even when I asked." Elena looked down. "I used to think that was love, being invisible so he could shine. And now I know, love doesn't erase you, it reflects you." Sebastián studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat and placed a sealed envelope on the table. "It's a loan," he said. "No interest, no public record, just a line of credit through a private trust. Enough to bid competitively at auction if it comes to that." Elena stared at the envelope as if it might burn her. "Why?" "Because Raphael took something from you," Sebastián said quietly. "Not just a house. Your story. And stories matter more than real estate." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I can't promise I'll win." "You already have," he said. "You stood up. That's the hardest part." Later that night, back in her small apartment, she'd moved out of the villa 2 weeks ago, unable to live in a house that felt like a gilded cage. Elena opened the envelope. The amount inside was more than generous. It was belief made liquid. She called Sophia. "Mama?" Her daughter answered, voice sleepy. "If I told you we might get our home back, not as it was, but as it could be, would you want that?" Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then, "Only if you're happy there, not just staying." Elena closed her eyes. "I wouldn't stay, Carino. I'd live." Outside, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Somewhere, Raphael was probably toasting Valeria in some penthouse, unaware that the ground beneath his empire was turning to sand. And Elena, once the silent architect of his world, was now quietly building her own, not with marble or infinity pools. Beside it, Sebastian's envelope, now signed, sealed, and wired into a discreet escrow account under Lucia's supervision. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lucia: "He's not coming. Confirmed. He's in Monaco with Valeria. Thinks it's a formality. Thinks no one dares bid against his villa." Elena exhaled slowly. Good. She picked up her keys, then paused. From her desk drawer, she took a single pressed jasmine flower, dried years ago, tucked inside her old sketchbook. She slipped it into her pocket, over her heart. At the courthouse, the auction room was hushed, lined with polished wood and indifferent faces. Investors, agents, a few curious locals. Elena sat in the back, head high, hands folded in her lap. She didn't look at the glossy brochure on the seat beside her. She didn't need to. She knew every curve of that villa better than anyone in the room. The auctioneer, a man with tired eyes and a monotone voice, stepped to the podium. Lot 14, Villa Costa Azul. Starting bid, 3.2 million euros. A hand shot up near the front. 3.3. Another. 3.5. Elena didn't move. She waited. Let them believe it was just another asset. Let them underestimate the silence in the back. At 4.1 million euros, the room quieted. Only two bidders remained, a real estate syndicate and a private buyer from Geneva. Then Elena raised her hand. Smooth, deliberate, unshaken. 4.3 million, she said, voice clear as glass. Heads turned. Whispers rippled. Someone muttered, "Isn't that Delgado's wife?" The Geneva buyer frowned, glanced at his advisor, then shook his head, out. The syndicate hesitated. 4.4. Elena didn't flinch. 4.6. Silence stretched. The auctioneer counted. Going once, going twice. The syndicate's representative exhaled sharply and shook his head. Sold. The auctioneer announced. To bidder number 89, Senora Elena Morales. A gasp, then murmurs, then applause. Not out of joy, but astonishment. Elena stood. She didn't smile. She simply walked to the front, signed the temporary transfer documents with a steady hand, and accepted the sealed keys in a small velvet pouch. Outside, rain began to fall, soft, steady, like a benediction. She stood on the courthouse steps, keys in hand, water beating on her shoulders. She didn't call Sophia yet, didn't call Clara or Lucia. She just stood there, feeling the weight of 15 years lift, not with a crash, but with a sigh. Back at her apartment that evening, her phone rang. A known number. She answered. Elena. Raphael's voice tight, strangled. What the hell did you do? I bought a house, she said calmly. You had no right. That villa was yours? She finished gently. No, Raphael. It was ours. And now it's mine. He was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, it was quieter. You'll never manage the taxes, the maintenance. You think this is victory? It's a burden. Maybe, she said, but it's my burden. And I'd rather carry something real than live in the hollow shell you left me. Another silence. Then, faintly, Valeria left. Said I'm unstable. A bitter laugh. Guess I'm not such a catch without the villa, huh? Elena closed her eyes. She felt no triumph. Only sorrow, for him, for the man he could have been. I'm sorry, she said, and meant it. But don't call me again unless it's about Sophia. She hung up. Then, slowly, she opened her laptop and typed an email to the contractor who'd installed the villas. Original skylight. I'd like to restore the library. Same glass, same stars. She leaned back, the jasmine flower still in her pocket, warm against her skin. And Raphael had laughed, lightly, carelessly, because he truly believed it was his by divine right. So when the call came from his financial advisor, his face was still sun-kissed, his linen shirt crisp, his world still neatly ordered. Senor Delgado, the villa. It's gone. What do you mean, gone? Raphael snapped, stepping away from the yacht's deck party, voice dropping low. It's in litigation limbo. No serious buyer would touch it. There was an auction this morning, the advisor said, voice strained. Senora Morales won the bid. Full payment cleared through escrow. Title transfer is pending, but it's effectively hers. Raphael froze. The Mediterranean breeze suddenly felt cold. Elena? She doesn't have that kind of money. She had backing, the advisor said carefully, and documentation. The bank accepted her claim of equitable interest as grounds for her bid. Legally, it's clean. Raphael's grip tightened on the phone. His knuckles whitened. That's impossible. But it wasn't. Back in Costa Azul, Elena stood in the empty villa for the first time as its legal owner. The air was still thick with dust and memory. She didn't turn on the lights. She walked through the rooms by the fading afternoon sun, her heels silent on the marble, her breath the only sound. She stopped in the library, the room with the skylight. She tilted her head back, remembering how she'd insisted on triple-glazed glass so the stars would never blur. Raphael had called it excessive. She'd called it necessary. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. A message from Lucia. He's panicking. Called 3 lawyers in 2 hours. Wants to file an emergency injunction. It won't hold. The auction was public, transparent, and his own financial missteps triggered it. He's cornered. Elena typed back. Good. Not cruel. Just final. She walked to the study, the room where she'd once hidden her dreams in sketchbooks. Now, she opened the hidden panel behind the bookshelf, the one Raphael never knew existed, built during construction on her quiet instruction. Inside lay the villa's original structural plans, stamped with both their names. She pulled them out, smoothed the creases. Then she dialed Clara. It's done, she said, voice soft but steady. Clara gasped. You have it. I have it all, Elena replied, looking out the window at the fig tree swaying in the wind. And he has nothing but the echo of what he threw away. Later that night, alone in the silent house, Elena didn't celebrate. She sat on the floor of the master bedroom, her bedroom now, and opened a bottle of wine she'd bought that afternoon. Not the vintage Raphael favored. Something local, honest, full of earth and sun. She poured a glass, raised it to the empty room. To remembering, she whispered, and to beginning. Outside, the first stars appeared through the skylight, sharp, clear, unwavering. And somewhere across the sea, Raphael stared at his reflection in a mirrored suite, realizing too late that the woman he'd dismissed as harmless had been building her own empire all along. Not of steel and glass, but of resilience, precision, and quiet, unshakable will. He had lost more than a villa. He had lost the one person who ever truly saw him, and chose to walk away, not in anger, but in peace. And that, Elena knew as she sipped her wine in the house she had reclaimed, was she didn't hang it on the wall. She placed it in the drawer of the old writing desk in the study, the one she'd chosen because it would match the olive trees outside. Then she walked through the villa again, not as a visitor, not as a ghost, but as a woman returning home to a place she had never truly left. But peace was short-lived. 2 days later, as rain lashed the coast and wind howled through the jasmine vines, the doorbell rang. Elena opened it to find Raphael standing on the threshold, drenched, eyes red-rimmed, suit wrinkled, no entourage, no Valeria. Just him, alone for the first time in years. You can't keep me out, he said, voice raw. There are things in there I need. Elena didn't step aside. This is my home now, Raphael. Not your storage unit. It's not about furniture, he snapped, then lowered his voice, glancing around as if someone might be watching. There's a safe, behind the painting in the study. You haven't touched it, have you? Her pulse quickened, but she kept her face calm. I haven't touched anything yet. Relief flickered across his face. Too quickly. Good. Just let me in. 5 minutes. I'll be gone. She studied him. The arrogance still there, but frayed at the edges, like fabric worn thin by panic. Why should I trust you? Because I'm not asking as your husband, he said, voice cracking slightly. I'm asking as someone who's made terrible mistakes. Please, Elena. Those documents, if they get out, get out, she interrupted softly. To whom? The authorities? Your investors? The bank? He flinched. It's complicated. No, she said, stepping back just enough to let the door swing open. It's simple. You built a house of cards, Raphael, and now the wind is blowing. She let him in, but stayed close, arms crossed, watching as he strode to the study, pulled the landscape painting from the wall, and spun the dial on the concealed safe with practiced speed. The door clicked open. He reached inside and froze. What is it? Elena asked, stepping closer. His hands trembled as he pulled out a stack of folders. Not the financial records he expected, but photographs, letters, a small velvet box. Elena recognized them instantly. The box, her mother's engagement ring, the one Raphael had given back to her during a fight years ago, saying it was too old-fashioned. The letters, her handwritten notes to Sophia, tucked away for safekeeping. The photos, Sophia's first steps, her 5th birthday, their last family trip to Seville. You kept these? She whispered, stunned. He didn't answer, just stared at the items as if seeing them for the first time. Then, quietly, I didn't keep them for you. I kept them because I couldn't throw them away. A silence settled between them, thick with everything unsaid. Elena reached past him and took the velvet box. Opened it. The ring gleamed softly in the dim light. You threw me away, she said, voice trembling not with anger, but sorrow. But you held onto the pieces of me like souvenirs. He looked at her then, really looked, not at the wife he'd discarded, but at the woman who had outmaneuvered him with grace, who stood in the house he'd lost not with vengeance, but with quiet dignity. Why did you buy it? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. You could have walked away rich, free. Because this house, she said, glancing around the room, her room, is where I learned who I was, and where I decided I wouldn't disappear. He closed the safe, didn't take anything, just stood there, shoulders slumped, the weight of his choices finally pressing down. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. You don't have to, she said gently. Some things aren't meant to be fixed, just released. He nodded slowly, then turned to leave. At the door, he paused. Will you tell Sophia I came? I'll tell her you remembered what mattered, Elena said. Even if it was too late. He left without another word. Elena stood in the foyer, rain drumming on the roof, the ring warm in her palm. She didn't put it back in the safe. She slipped it onto her right hand, her own life. And as the storm raged outside, she lit a single candle in the hallway, just like she used to. Not for him. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Again. She answered cautiously. Hello, Elena. Raphael's voice, tight, controlled, but laced with something new, desperation. I need to talk to you, in person. I thought you said everything you needed to say, she replied, snipping a dead vine with deliberate calm. This is different, he insisted. Please, meet me at the Harbor Cafe. 1 hour. Alone. She hesitated, but curiosity, and the quiet instinct that this wasn't just about pride anymore, made her agree. At the cafe, Raphael sat at a corner table, no designer sunglasses, no tailored jacket. Just a man in a wrinkled shirt, stirring cold coffee with a trembling hand. You look tired, she said, sitting across from him. I haven't slept, he admitted. The board's calling emergency meetings. Investors are pulling out. And that safe, Elena, there were files in there. Contracts with offshore entities. Undisclosed liabilities. If those surfaced during an audit. He trailed off, eyes darting toward the street. You're afraid, she realized, not unkindly. I'm ruined, he whispered. And not just financially. My name, everything I built. It's crumbling because of decisions I thought were clever at the time. He leaned forward, voice low. Sell me the villa back. Name your price. Double what you paid. Triple it. Just give it back. Elena stared at him. The man who once offered her a pension like she was a servant was now begging for scraps of his former life. "Why?" she asked softly. "Is it really about the documents? Or is it because you can't stand that I own the one thing you thought defined you?" He flinched. "It's both. And yes, I can't stand it. Every time I close my eyes, I see you walking through those doors like you belong there. And you do. That's what kills me." For a long moment, she said nothing. The gulls cried overhead. Boats rocked gently in the harbor. Then she spoke, voice quiet but unshakable. "This house was never yours to keep, Raphael. It was always mine to reclaim. And I won't trade it for money. Not yours, not anyone's." He swallowed hard. "Then at least let me retrieve the files. I'll pay you. Hire your firm to redesign the whole place, whatever you want." She shook her head. "You don't get to bargain your way back into control. Not this time." He looked down, defeated. "So that's it? You win, I lose, and the world moves on." "I didn't do this to win," she said gently. "I did it to survive. And to show Sophia that a woman doesn't have to vanish to make room for someone else's ego." He was silent for a long time. Then, quietly, Valeria left. Said, "I'm toxic. Funny. I thought I was the prize." "Maybe the prize was never you," Elena said. "Maybe it was always the life you threw away." He didn't argue, just nodded slowly, as if finally seeing the truth not as an enemy, but as a mirror. As she stood to leave, he called after her, voice breaking, "Elena, do you think we could ever—" "No," she said without turning. "Some doors close so you can walk through others." She walked away, not looking back. But as she drove home, her hands steady on the wheel, she felt no triumph, only resolve. Because she knew this wasn't over. Raphael wouldn't let go easily. And those hidden documents, they were a ticking clock. But for the first time, the ticking wasn't in her chest. It was in his. And now she held the key not just to a villa but to the truth. She parked, stepped inside, and walked straight to the study. This time she opened the safe. Herself, not for the files, but to place a single note on top of them, written in her clear, steady hand. "I know what's here, and I choose not to use it yet. But remember, the house doesn't protect you anymore. It protects me." Then she closed the safe, turned the dial, and walked out into the sunlight. The villa stood silent behind her, no longer a trophy, but a fortress. Capped her pen, and walked to the front door with the calm of someone who no longer feared his presence. She opened it before he could ring the bell. "You don't live here anymore," she said, not unkindly, but with finality. "I just want to talk," he replied, voice low, eyes scanning the villa as if searching for the man he used to be in its arches and tiles. "Please, Elena, 5 minutes." She stepped aside, just enough to let him in, but not enough to welcome him. They stood in the foyer, where the marble still gleamed, where the air still held the faintest trace of jasmine. He looked around, not with ownership, but with something closer to grief. "I've been thinking," he began, shifting his weight. "Maybe we can co-own it. You keep living here. I'll stay in the city. We split maintenance, taxes." "This isn't a business proposal," she interrupted, voice steady. "It's my home." He flinched, then tried again, softer this time. "I'm not asking for control. I'm asking for peace, for access, for dignity." Elena studied him, the hollows under his eyes, the way his collar didn't quite sit right, as if even his clothes had lost faith in him. He wasn't the titan anymore, just a man clinging to the last symbol of a life he'd mismanaged. She took a slow breath. "You had 15 years to give me dignity, Raphael. You gave me silence instead. You had every chance to see me, not as your accessory, but as your partner. And you chose not to." He looked down. "I thought love was providing. I didn't realize it was seeing." "Now you know," she said. "But knowing doesn't give you back what you lost." He swallowed hard. "So that's it? You'll never let me in? Not even to retrieve my things?" "Your things were packed and stored in the garage weeks ago," she said. "You can arrange pickup with the courier. I've already signed the release." He stared at her, stunned. You didn't keep anything? Why would I? She asked, voice quiet but firm. I didn't want your suits. I didn't want your trophies. I wanted my house. And I have it. He was silent for a long moment. Then, almost to himself, you really did it. You built a new life while I was still sleeping in mine. I didn't build it while you slept, she corrected gently. I built it while you looked away. He nodded slowly, as if the truth had finally settled into his bones. Then he met her eyes one last time with something like respect. What you said before, about the house never being mine. He paused. Was that true? Elena didn't look away. It was always mine. You just held the deed. He exhaled. A long, slow release, like a man surrendering a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying. Then I guess I was never really home. No, she said softly. You weren't. He turned to leave. At the threshold, he stopped. Will you tell Sophia I asked about her? I'll tell her you remembered she exists, Elena said. That's a start. He gave a faint, sad smile and walked out, this time without looking back. Elena closed the door, not with a slam, but with quiet certainty. Then she walked to the study, opened the safe once more, and removed the hidden files. Not to destroy them, not to use them, but to hand them over to Lucia with instructions. If he ever tries to leverage this house again, these go to the financial regulator, not as revenge, as insurance. That evening, as the sun melted into the sea, Elena sat on the terrace with Sophia, sipping herbal tea. Is Papa coming back? Sophia asked, tracing the rim of her cup. Elena took her daughter's hand. He might visit, but he won't live here. This is our home now. Sophia was quiet. Then, good. Feels lighter. Elena smiled, squeezing her hand. Yes, mi vida. Some spaces only breathe when the right people leave. And as the stars appeared one by one above the villa, her villa, Elena knew. She wasn't guarding a victory. She was tending a future. And this time, every brick, every vine, every breath within these walls would be hers, by choice, by courage, and by the quiet, unshakable truth that she approached slowly, heels clicking on the wet marble, her silhouette sharp against the city's glow. You look like hell, she said, sliding into the seat across from him without waiting for an invitation. He didn't look up. You always had a way with words. She ordered a glass of white wine, then studied him. The unshaven jaw, the tired eyes, the way his hands, once so confident signing million-euro deals, now trembled slightly around the glass. I heard about the villa, she said finally. Elena bought it. At auction. Stole it. He muttered, though there was no fire in it, just exhaustion. No, Valeria said, voice quieter now. She claimed it. There's a difference. He finally looked at her. Why are you here? Because I saw the headlines, she said. Delgado Holdings in freefall. Board calling for your resignation. And your face, all over the business pages like a cautionary tale. He laughed bitterly. Come to rub it in? No, she said, meeting his gaze. I came to understand. He frowned. Understand what? Why she won, Valeria said, swirling her wine. I thought you left her because she was passive, quiet, weak, but she didn't fight you with screams or scandals. She fought you with precision, with patience, with proof. Raphael looked away, jaw tight. You told me once, Valeria continued, voice low, that Elena never challenged you, that she just accepted things. But maybe she was waiting, watching, building her case while you were too busy believing your own myth. He didn't answer. Do you even know why she refused your pension? She asked. Pride, he said flatly. No. Valeria shook her head. Dignity. You offered her money like it was a cage with silk lining. She wanted freedom, not your leftovers. Raphael's fingers tightened around his glass. What do you want from me, Valeria? An apology? A confession? I want to know if you see it now, she said softly. That the woman you discarded wasn't invisible. She was invincible, and you never stood a chance. He was silent for a long time, The city hummed below them, indifferent, relentless. Then, barely above a whisper, I thought owning everything meant I couldn't lose, but I lost the one thing that actually mattered. What's that? She asked. Myself, he said. I became so obsessed with being Rafael Delgado, billionaire, that I forgot how to be Rafael, the man who once held Elena's hand and promised her a home. Valeria stared at him, something shifting in her expression. Not pity, but clarity. I left you, she said finally. Not because you're failing, but because you never truly saw me either. You just saw another reflection of your success. He looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time didn't try to charm, deflect, or dominate. You're right, he said. I used you the way I used everything, as proof I was still winning. She stood, leaving her wine untouched. Then maybe losing is the best thing that ever happened to you. She turned to go, then paused. By the way, Elena didn't take the villa to hurt you. She took it to heal herself. There's a difference. And with that, she walked away, her silhouette disappearing into the neon haze. Rafael sat alone, the whiskey forgotten, the city indifferent. Far across town, in the quiet glow of Villa Costa Azul, Elena stood on the terrace, watching the same stars. She didn't know Valeria had confronted him. She didn't need to, because she'd already won. Not by destroying him, but by refusing to be destroyed. And somewhere in the silence between them, the truth echoed louder than any argument ever could. Some people only learn your worth after you walk away. But by then, you're already gone. Not in anger. Delgado Holdings plunges as Villa Costa Azul sells in shock auction. Ex-wife's silent bid exposes billionaire's financial fragility. Rafael Delgado. From real estate titan to cautionary tale, Elena read them not with glee, but with a quiet ache. She hadn't fed the press. She hadn't whispered a word. But the truth had its own gravity. And once the villa changed hands, the cracks in Rafael's empire widened like fault lines. She was in her new studio, walls still bare, drafting table bathed in morning light, when the call came from Lucia. He's done, Lucia said, voice low but electric with restrained urgency. 3 major investors pulled out this morning. The Dubai project is officially in receivership. And the board, they're voting tomorrow. They're going to oust him. Elena set down her pencil. Does he know? He's begging for emergency mediation, trying to spin it as strategic restructuring. But no one's buying it. His name's toxic now. A silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant crash of waves. It's not just the money, is it? Elena asked softly. No, Lucia admitted. It's the symbol. The villa wasn't just property, it was his trophy, his proof of invincibility. And now everyone knows. A woman he dismissed as just a wife took it from under his nose with nothing but documents and dignity. That afternoon, Elena walked through the villa's garden, pruning shears in hand, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of Rafael, not the man who betrayed her, but the one who once held her in the rain and promised, no storm will ever reach us here. He'd built his life on illusions of control, and now the wind had torn the curtain away. Her phone buzzed, a message from an old mutual friend. Saw Rafael at the club today. He didn't recognize me at first, just stared into his drink like it held answers. People are whispering he's finished. She didn't reply, but that evening, as she sat with Sophia on the terrace, the news played softly on the tablet beside them. And in business, Rafael Delgado, once valued at over 2 billion euros, now faces potential personal bankruptcy as creditors circle. Sophia looked up, eyes wide. Is Papa going to be okay? Elena reached for her daughter's hand. He'll survive, but he has to choose what kind of man he wants to be now. Not the one the world built for him, but the one he builds for himself. Sophia nodded slowly, then leaned her head on Elena's shoulder. I'm glad we're here. With you. Elena kissed the top of her head, heart full. So am I, mi vida. So am I. Meanwhile, in a sterile boardroom downtown, Rafael sat alone at the head of a table that once echoed with his commands. The directors filed in. Faces he'd trusted, men he'd called friends. Now avoiding his gaze, shuffling papers like shields. The chairman cleared his throat. Raphael, given the liquidity crisis, the reputational damage, and the loss of key assets, including the Costa Azul property, we believe it's in the company's best interest for you to step down as CEO. Raphael didn't argue, didn't rage. He simply looked around the room and said, voice hollow, was it the villa that did it, or the fact that she won it without saying a word? No one answered. He stood, straightened his jacket. A reflex, not a statement, and walked out. Outside, rain began to fall again. He didn't open his umbrella. Let it soak him. Let the city see him not as a titan, but as a man, ordinary, flawed, finally human. Back at the villa, Elena stood at the window watching the storm roll in. She didn't feel triumph. She felt something deeper, clarity. Raphael's fall wasn't her victory. It was the natural consequence of a life built on sand. And her rise wasn't revenge. It was the quiet reclamation of a soul that refused to drown. She lit a candle in the foyer. The same ritual she'd kept for years, but now it meant something new. Not hope for him, hope for herself. Because the villa wasn't just a house anymore. It was a testament. And as thunder rumbled over the sea, Elena knew. The world might be celebrating Raphael's downfall, but she was already building something that would last far longer than empires. Something real, something true, wood for honest work. She wore paint-splattered jeans and a cotton blouse, hair tied back, no trace of the woman who once attended galas in sapphire silk. This Elena didn't need armor. She needed air, space, silence that wasn't empty, but full of possibility. Her phone rang. Clara, calling from Seville. Tell me you didn't rip out the mosaic in the foyer, Clara teased. Elena laughed, the sound easy, unburdened. I kept it, but I added something. A small plaque, set into the stone near the door. Just 2 words, built by love. No names, just truth. Good, Clara said softly, because that villa was never about his money. It was about your hands. Elena looked up at the fig tree, its branches heavy with new leaves. I'm not erasing the past, Clara. I'm translating it. The kitchen stays, the same terracotta tiles, the same island where I cried over job rejections and baked mantecados to feel useful. But now, I'm turning the East Wing into a library and workshop for young women learning design. No gatekeepers, just open doors. You're turning pain into purpose, Clara said, voice thick with pride. Maybe, Elena replied, brushing dust from her hands. Or maybe I'm just finally living in a home that reflects who I am, not who I was told to be. Later that afternoon, Sophia wandered into the half-finished studio, sketchbook in hand. Can I help? She asked, eyes bright. Of course, Elena said, handing her a pencil. Draw where you think the reading nook should go. Sophia knelt on the wooden floor, sketching intently. After a while, she looked up. Mama, do you miss him? Elena paused, trowel in hand. I miss the man I thought he was, not the one he became. Do you think he'll come back? Sophia asked quietly. I hope not, Elena said, surprising even herself with her honesty. Not because I hate him, but because this home is ours now, yours and mine, and it needs to breathe without his shadow. Sophia nodded, then went back to her drawing. But a moment later, she said, I like it here. Feels like us. Elena's eyes stung. She knelt beside her daughter and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. That's because it is us. Every choice, every color, every window. We're building a place where we don't have to shrink to be loved. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the patio, Elena walked through the villa one last time that day, not as an owner inspecting property, but as a woman walking through her own soul. She touched the old banister she'd chosen for its curve, ran her fingers over the bookshelf she'd insisted be low enough for Sophia to reach as a child, stood in the library beneath the skylight where she'd once watched stars and wondered if she'd ever be seen. Now she knew. She didn't need to be seen by him. She needed to see herself. And in this villa, her villa, she finally did. That night, as she sat on the terrace with a cup of chamomile tea, Lucia called. "The bank closed his personal accounts this morning," she said. "He's renting a small apartment downtown. No staff, no penthouse, just quiet." Elena was silent for a long moment. "Does he have enough?" "Enough to survive," Lucia said. "Not to rebuild." Elena looked out at the sea, calm now after the storm. "Good," she said softly. "Let him learn what it means to build something real, not with money, but with humility." She didn't gloat, didn't rejoice. She simply accepted it as part of the balance of things. Because the villa wasn't a trophy anymore. It was a sanctuary. And every wall, every window, every jasmine vine was now a testament. Not to what Raphael lost, but to what Elena reclaimed. Her name, her voice. Elena saw him from the library window. She didn't rush, didn't hide. She simply set down her sketchbook, smoothed her linen dress, and walked out to meet him. Not as a wife, not as an enemy, but as a woman who had long since stopped defining herself in relation to him. He looked older, thinner. His suit was off the rack, his posture less commanding, more human. "I wasn't sure you'd let me in," he said, voice quiet. "I don't have to let you in to speak to you," she replied gently. "We can talk here." He nodded, accepting the boundary. "I just wanted to see it. One last time." She studied him, the absence of arrogance, the rawness beneath his calm. "Why now?" He looked past her, at the villa bathed in golden hour light, the new cedar beams of the studio rising beside the old stone. "Because I read about your project. The design, mentorship for women, the open library. You didn't tear it down. You transformed it." "I didn't want to erase the past," she said. "I wanted to redeem it." He smiled faintly. "You always saw beauty in things others called impractical." They walked slowly toward the patio, side by side but not touching, like two strangers who once shared a lifetime. "You could have burned it all," he said, "after everything, but you didn't." "No," Elena said, stopping beneath the fig tree, the same one she'd fought to keep during construction. "Because this place wasn't yours to ruin, and it wasn't mine to destroy. It was ours to heal." He exhaled, long and slow. "I came to ask, not for forgiveness. I don't deserve that, but for understanding. Did you ever love me? Truly?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at the leaves rustling above them, remembered the nights she'd sat here wondering if silence could be a language of love. "Yes," she said finally. "I loved the man who held my hand when I was scared, the one who believed in my vision before anyone else did. But I stopped loving the man who stopped seeing me." He bowed his head. "I thought success would make me worthy of you. Instead, it made me blind." They stood in silence for a while, the sea whispering in the distance. "Sophia asked about you," Elena said softly. "She wonders if you're okay." "I'm learning," he said, "to be okay without the noise, without the titles." He paused. "I got a job, teaching real estate ethics at the university. Part-time, pays barely enough, but it feels honest." She looked at him then, not with pity, but with something softer. "Recognition. That's a good start. Is there any chance we could have coffee? Somewhere neutral? Just to talk? About Sophia. About nothing else." Elena considered it. Not for him. For Sophia. For the quiet hope that the man standing before her might one day be the father their daughter deserved. Not the ghost of a titan, but a present, humble man. "Next Tuesday," she said, "at the Harbor Cafe. 10 o'clock. Just coffee." Relief washed over his face. Not joy, but the fragile peace of being granted a sliver of grace. He turned to leave, then stopped. "You look lighter." "I am," she said, "because I stopped carrying what wasn't mine to hold." He nodded, then walked away, this time not with defeat, but with the quiet dignity of someone finally learning to walk on their own 2 feet. Elena stayed beneath the fig tree long after he'd gone, the scent of jasmine wrapping around her like a promise. She didn't go back inside right away. She let the moment settle, the absence of anger, the presence of peace. Because this wasn't reconciliation. It was release. And in that release, she found something even rarer than victory. Compassion. Not because he deserved it, but because she was finally free enough to give it. And as the sun dipped below the cliffs, casting the villa in warm, forgiving light, Elena knew. Some endings aren't about closure. They're about making space. For truth. For healing. For the quiet, steady courage to say. Raphael arrived 5 minutes late, holding 2 paper cups. He set one down in front of her. "I remembered you switched to mint," he said, sitting carefully, as if afraid to take up too much space. She gave a small, surprised smile. "You remembered." "I remember a lot of things now," he said, voice low. "Mostly the ones I ignored when I thought I had everything." They sat in silence for a moment, not awkward but weighted. Like 2 people standing on opposite banks of a river they'd both tried to cross too many times. "Sophia drew you a picture," Elena said finally, pulling a folded sheet from her bag. She smoothed it on the table. A villa, the fig tree, a small boat on the sea, and 2 figures holding hands beneath it. One labeled Mama, the other simply Papa, with a question mark. Raphael's hand trembled as he touched the paper. "She still thinks of me? She wonders if you'll stay this time," Elena said gently. "Not as the man on magazine covers, but as her father." He swallowed hard. "I want to be, but I don't know how to start." "Start by showing up," she said. "Without a performance. Without a story. Just be there. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when it's quiet." He nodded slowly, folding the drawing with care and slipping it into his coat pocket, over his heart. Then he looked at her, really looked, for the first time without agenda. "You've changed." "So have you," she said. "No," he corrected softly. "I've shrunk. You've expanded." She smiled faintly. "I just stopped folding myself to fit your world." He stirred his coffee, though he didn't drink it. "You know, after the auction, after everything collapsed, I kept thinking, if only I'd listened. If only I'd seen her. And then I realized I did see you. I just chose to look away." Elena's eyes glistened, but she didn't look down. "You didn't just look away, Raphael. You traded me for a mirror. Someone who told you what you wanted to hear, not who you really were." He flinched but didn't deny it. "Valeria left because I became unbearable, paranoid, bitter. She said I only loved the idea of being loved, not the work of loving someone." "And now?" Elena asked. "Now I'm learning that love isn't possession," he said. "It's presence. And I wasn't present. Not for you, not for Sophia, not even for myself." A seagull cried overhead. The sun warmed the wooden planks beneath their feet. "I'm not asking for a second chance with you," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I know that ship has sailed. But can I ask for a chance to be in Sophia's life, as someone who's trying? Not perfect, just trying." Elena studied him, the humility in his eyes, the absence of the old defensiveness. This wasn't the Raphael who offered her a pension like she was a discarded employee. This was a man who'd hit the bottom and found, not bitterness, but reflection. "You don't need my permission to love your daughter," she said. "But you do need her trust. And that's earned, not claimed." He nodded. "I'll start small. A birthday message. A walk after school. No grand gestures. Just consistency." "Good," she said. "Because grand gestures are easy. Showing up on ordinary Tuesdays, that's love." He looked out at the sea, then back at her. "Thank you for not hating me." "I never hated you," she said softly. "I grieved you, the man I believed you were. But hate takes too much energy. And I've got a villa to rebuild, a daughter to raise, a life to live." He gave a small, sad smile. "You really did it, didn't you? You built a life without me. And it's more beautiful than the one we had." "It's not about you anymore," she said. "It's about me remembering I was always enough, even when you forgot." He reached into his pocket and placed something on the table, a small velvet box. Her mother's ring. "I found it in my things," he said. I think it belongs with you. She picked it up, cool metal warming in her palm. I don't need it to feel whole. I know, he said, but maybe you'll keep it. Not as a symbol of us, but of you. The woman who built a home from silence and turned betrayal into strength. She closed her fingers around it. I'll keep it. For Sophia. So she knows her grandmother's legacy wasn't lost, and neither was mine. They sat a while longer, not speaking, just watching the boats drift in and out of the harbor, comings and goings, beginnings and returns. When it was time to leave, they stood without ceremony. No more surprises at the gate, she said gently. No, he agreed. Only what's invited. And as he walked away, shoulders lighter than when he'd arrived, Elena didn't watch him go with longing or regret. She watched with quiet certainty, because the love that once bound them hadn't vanished. It had transformed, not into bitterness, not into memory, but into a clear, clean space, where forgiveness could breathe, where Sophia could be whole, and where Elena, at last, read, "All are welcome, no permission required." Elena stood in the garden, helping Sophia plant winter jasmine along the path. New roots for a new season. They're coming today, right? Sophia asked, patting soil around a young vine. Yes, Elena said, brushing dirt from her hands. The first group of residents. It had started as a whisper between friends. What if the villa wasn't just a home, but a harbor? Now it was real. The Costa Azul residency would offer 6-month stays to women rebuilding after divorce, financial crisis, or loss. Safe housing, career coaching, and a space to remember their worth. All funded by Elena's growing design consultancy and a few quiet donors who believed in second chances. A car pulled up the drive. Not a luxury sedan, but a modest sedan with 2 women stepping out. Ana, a former teacher from Valencia, and Maribel, a seamstress from Cádiz, both carrying worn suitcases and cautious hope in their eyes. Elena walked forward, not with grandeur, but with open arms. "Welcome," she said simply. Anna's eyes filled. "I read about you online, how you lost everything and built something better." "I didn't lose everything," Elena corrected gently. "I lost what wasn't mine, and found what was." She led them inside, showing them their rooms, light-filled, simple, with handmade quilts and desks by the windows. "This isn't charity," she said. "It's solidarity. You'll contribute your skills, your stories. We grow together." Later that afternoon, as the women sat in the patio sharing tea, Sophia brought out cookies she'd baked herself. Elena watched her daughter laugh with Anna's teenage son, who'd come to stay with his mother after his father's sudden abandonment. Her heart swelled, not with pride, but with peace. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the cliffs, Elena stood alone on the terrace, the villa alive with quiet voices, the clink of teacups, the murmur of shared healing. Her phone buzzed. A message from Rafael. Saw the article in the paper. Architect Elena Morales transforms villa into sanctuary for women in transition. "You look radiant," she typed back. "Not radiant, just real." A pause. Then, "Sophia invited me to the open house next week. If it's okay with you," she replied. It's her home too, her call. She didn't add conditions, didn't brace for pain. She simply trusted the boundaries they'd built and Sophia's growing wisdom. As night fell, Elena lit candles along the terrace. Not for show, but for warmth. The women gathered, sharing stories under the stars, their voices weaving a new kind of legacy into the villa's bones. One of them, Maribel, turned to Elena. "How did you do it? Walk away and build all this?" Elena looked out at the sea, then back at the women, strong, scared, becoming. "I stopped believing I needed permission to exist fully," she said. "And I remembered. A home isn't made of marble or money. It's made of belonging. And everyone deserves that." Inside, Sophia played piano, softly, the same lullaby Elena used to sing to her. The notes floated through the open doors, mingling with laughter and the rustle of jasmine. And in that moment, Elena knew. The villa was no longer a monument to a broken marriage. It was a living testament to rebirth. Not loud, not vengeful, just deeply, quietly, fiercely hers. And as the stars blinked awake above the cliffs, she whispered, not to Raphael, not to the past, but to herself. This is what freedom sounds like. Overflowed with food brought by hands that once trembled with uncertainty, and laughter rose like music over the whisper of the sea. Elena stood near the old stone fountain. The one Raphael had insisted was too rustic, now surrounded by potted herbs and hand-painted tiles made by the residents. She wore a simple linen dress, her hair loose, her mother's ring on her right hand, not as a relic of the past, but as a reminder. Love endures, even when people don't. Sophia approached, twirling in a new dress she'd sewn herself. "Papa's here," she said softly. Elena turned. Raphael stood at the edge of the garden, not in a suit, but in a sweater and trousers, hands in his pockets, watching not the villa, but the people inside it. Women teaching each other to sketch, a young girl reading aloud under the fig tree, Anna now leading a workshop on financial literacy. He looked different, not broken, not rebuilt, just present. He walked over slowly, nodding to a few familiar faces. When he reached Elena, he didn't offer a handshake or a hug, just a quiet, "You did it." "I didn't do it alone," she said, glancing at the women gathered around the fire pit. "They did it with me." He followed her gaze. "I read about Maribel. Her dressmaking cooperative just got funding." "She's brave," Elena said. "Braver than she knows." A silence settled between them. Not heavy, but comfortable, like two people who no longer needed to fill space with noise. "I come every week," he said after a while, "to see Sophia. We go for walks. She's teaching me how to sketch." He smiled faintly. "I'm terrible at it." "She says you listen now," Elena said. "I'm learning," he admitted. "It's harder than closing a deal, but it matters more." She studied him, the lines around his eyes deeper now but softer. "You're not the man who left this house." "No," he said. "I hope I'm becoming the man my daughter deserves." They watched as Sophia ran over to show a young girl how to water the new lavender plants. Gentle, patient, sure. "You know," Raphael said quietly, "I used to think owning this villa meant I had one, that it proved I'd made it. But watching you turn it into this—" He gestured to the circle of women sharing stories, their faces lit by firelight. "This is real legacy, not wealth, not power. This—" Elena's throat tightened. "It wasn't about taking it from you, Raphael. It was about giving it back. To me, to Sophia, to women who thought they had nowhere left to go." He nodded. "And you didn't just give them shelter. You gave them mirrors, so they could see themselves again." Tears pricked her eyes. Not of sadness, but of completion. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon and stars began to bloom overhead, the women gathered in the library for a small ceremony. Anna stepped forward, holding a framed plaque. "We wanted to honor you," she said, voice trembling. "Not as a benefactor, but as a sister." She unveiled it, carved olive wood, simple letters. "This house is not owned. It is held in trust, in courage, in shared rebirth." Costa Azul Collective. Elena touched the words, her hand steady, her heart full. This wasn't victory. It was belonging. Afterward, as guests drifted home and candles burned low, Elena walked with Sophia to the edge of the terrace. "Do you think Papa will ever live here again?" Sophia asked. "No," Elena said gently. "But he doesn't need to. He's found his way back to us. Not through ownership, but through presence." Sophia leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "I'm glad we stayed." "We didn't just stay," Elena whispered, kissing her hair. "We grew." And as the sea sighed against the cliffs and the villa hummed with the quiet pulse of healing lives, Elena understood the truth the title had always hinted at. She hadn't struck back to destroy him. She'd reclaimed the villa not for revenge, but to prove that what is built with dignity can never truly be taken away. It was never about the luxury. It was about the right to return, not as a ghost, not as a guest, but as the author of her own story. And in this house, on this cliff, beneath these stars, Elena,